All right, at 7 o'clock, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have two council members absent, Mr. Trinkle and Mr. Garvey? We'll start with old business. Approval of minutes. The regular meeting minutes of September 2nd, 2021 were provided for review. I need a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of September 2nd, 2021 as presented.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Mr. Kirby?
Yes.
Mr. Major?
Yes.
Mr. Bueller?
Abstain.
Mr. Dixon?
Yes.
Mr. Brungart?
Yes.
Mr. Stednica?
Yes.
Motion passed. Audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to address the council on any item that is not on the agenda? No? Okay. We'll move on to new business. Public safety pay study, final report. Based on feedback at the August work session, Dr. McGrath is present to review and answer any questions regarding the public safety pay study. Are we going to... She on?
Well, we're not sure where she is.
Okay.
She might be having trouble getting on, so we had kind of, so you've seen her presentation, and hopefully she'll be able to get on and kind of go through that. In the meantime, we can kind of go through what we had put together. Her presentation is just kind of a summary of the full report, which you got. Ours is the same thing. We kind of pulled out the key points that we had heard at the last meeting we had where we discussed this, just to address some of those things, questions that you had had. So the first thing, just kind of a overview of it. You know, she emphasized that the starting salaries, they were within the average market range based on the cities that we use for comparison. There was one position that was below the market midpoint. And then all the other salaries, although they were within the market range, she talked about a competitive salary, that, you know, there's a high demand for police officers, public safety officers, and in order to stay competitive, we might want to look at moving just a little bit above that range. And what she proposed would put us fourth in the, out of 16 in the local area. So whereas we were, I think we're 11th currently, that would bump us up into fourth place. So we're a little bit more competitive than we would be at our current rate. So some of the new hire incentives, we just wanted to kind of touch on incentives because I know incentives was a big thing. So these are just the new hire incentives that are available when we hire someone brand new. When they graduate from KLETC, they get a 2% increase. If they've got an associate degree, they get credit 2% increase for that. Bachelor's degree, a 4%, master's. If they're bilingual, a 2% increase. We also offer tuition reimbursement, and that's anywhere from $1,200 to $2,400. It depends on the type of degree, and it's anything from an associate's degree to a master's degree. And it must be relevant to the position. We don't want somebody, you know, coming up with marine biology for a public safety officer. That's not going to benefit the city in any way. It's not going to benefit them in their position. So it has to be something that, criminal justice, you know, public relations, something along those lines. Yes.
Question. It says $1,200 to $2,400. Is that?
Oh, per year. I'm sorry. And it's per year.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought, but I just want to make sure.
Yes. So, and the employee must be employed for 6 months before we allow them to take advantage of that. And they are also required to remain employed for up to a year afterward, or they have to pay it back.
We made someone pay that back
We
just
did.
a couple of years ago, too,
Yes.
right?
And
Yeah.
Beth, this is not new. This is what we're currently give.
This
and we
is
are
currently what we're
continuing.
doing. Yes,
Okay.
this is what we currently have in place. And then we also have CPOS, if they're already certified in CPOS for years of service, we'll give 2.5%, up to 5 years. So like if you have 1 year of CPOS certification with a year of service, then you're going to get additional 2.5% when we hire you. If you've got 2 years, it's going to be 5%. 3 years, 7.5%. So this is currently in place for new hires.
And C-Post is,
That is, I think it's KLETC. It's the same
Because
thing.
it's state
Yeah.
certification.
okay.
So.
So if you come in as a new employee, but you're already certified? Okay, thank you.
Yes. So moving on to the incentives for existing employees, and these are also incentives we currently have in place. We have, again, the bilingual incentive. We do have a couple officers who are bilingual, so they had that 2% increase. There is a $40 per paycheck stipend for the field training officer. And we are actually above Leavenworth County, and in her study, she also said we were a little bit above that range that she recommended. So I think we're sitting pretty well there. Tuition reimbursement, again, that's available to everybody. So anybody is welcome to take advantage of that. And then if they go ahead and earn their master's degree, there's a 2% increase, and that's for all employees as well. So. Then we touched on compression. So on our current pay scale, I pulled this kind of from her report, that overall employees have moved through the range, and there are a few employees that possibly due to performance are not within the range. It doesn't match their years of service. You know, they're a little bit below that because of performance. That's part of how they move through the range, and if they haven't gotten good performance evaluations, then that has moved them a little bit down below where they technically should be for years of service. So on her recommended pay scale, it places employees at the minimum of the pay scale first, and then it adjusts for years of service. So if you have somebody who's had 2 years of service, I've got to look at my sheet again because I did this and I get confused after I had to write it out next to each one. So if they have 2 years of service, we're going to put them at the minimum of the range. And then they're going to get the 3% merit, and they're going to get 1.5% for years of service. And then if they're at the maximum, we have 3 employees who are at the maximum. So the cost to put these employees at the maximum of their range would be about double of what the cost is currently to put this pay study into play. So what we did with them is we placed them at the midpoint and then put them at 1.5% above that midpoint to start them out. I feel like, you know, that's a step in the right direction. Does it address compression completely? No, but it puts us a step in the right direction. The downside to putting somebody at the end of the top of their salary range too is that when you go to give the market adjustment, they get the market adjustment, but for the performance evaluation piece, that percentage just gets paid in a lump sum. It's not added to their salary, so they never really move. They just move with the market rate. So
with those 3, though, that's still a good increase from
yes.
where they are now.
Yeah, it is
where
an
if
increase.
You're starting plus a 1.5% is a good increase. So
yes.
It's a good news
yeah.
story.
The other thing that we had to consider when we were doing this is one department. So if we want to decide that we want to place everybody who is at 10 years or above at the maximum of their pay range, when we turn around and do the citywide study, there's a cost involved, you know, and we've got a lot of people who are at that. So that's still something, you know, that can be considered further down the line if council wants, you know, once we do the citywide salary study, if that's something council wants to revisit as far as compression for those tenured employees, that would be something then to sit down and have a conversation about once we know what the true cost would be. Because right now we've got a piece of it. We don't have the full cost. So moving on, these were some of the recommendations that she made in her study to add to what we already have. So these are new things that we could look at doing. The first thing is restructuring that PO2 position or combining it with the police officer position and offer it as incentive pay for the instructor certification, because right now, the only difference between the PO and the PO2 is getting instructor certification. So she felt like there wasn't that much of a difference. I think right now, internally, staff is kind of comfortable with the way it is, but that would be something that we could pull out and look at doing like something different with that if we wanted to do like the FTO where we did a $40 per pay period stipend versus putting them on a separate range for their salary. The other thing she did recommend was keeping our annual adjustment the same to the salary ranges, the way we do it, where we do the 4% and a piece of that is the market adjustment and a piece of that is performance evaluation. She did touch on a hiring bonus. And again, that's something that, would be something we could start working on and looking at, kind of investigating what type of hiring bonus. I think in looking at this study, I don't know, I feel like we're missing that middle piece. We got the new people, we got the people who've been here a while. We're missing that middle piece of people with experience. And so maybe we kind of target a hiring bonus toward officers who are making lateral moves from other organizations.
I mean, what range is that of experience are you talking?
I'm talking like 5 to 10 years. Yeah, that's really what we're missing right now. So that would be something that would, staff could start working on if that's what the council directs us to do. And then
when you say hiring bonus, are you saying like up front, like a bonus to come up front, or is it paid through the year? I mean, what?
Well, that again would be another piece of it. We'd have to look at what organizations are doing around us. I think a lot of them are doing like you sign on and you get part of it, and then 6 months later, a year later, you get another. Like, let's say your hiring bonus is $1,000.
Right.
You sign on, you're here, you get $500, a lump sum. We wouldn't be adding it each pay period. It would be more of a lump sum.
Yeah,
and then 6 months
that's
later.
What I was thinking too.
Yeah.
To keep that
Right.
person on.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the other recommendation was the extra pay for the detective position. This is a rotating position, so they only serve in that position for 2 years, but it's on the same pay range as the PO2 position. So sometimes these guys move into that position and they don't get a pay bump because they're already in they're a PO2, they're in that range, and they're where they should be. So there's no, first of all, no incentive for them to do a detective, which I think is a little bit more work than just the PO2 has. So we might look at moving them onto a different step in that salary range to incentivize that. And then just some of the other topics that were touched on, that you guys had questions on, that we feel like are better addressed once we complete the salary survey for the city, because it's going to affect more than just the police department, and that would be benefits. This was really only a pay study. It was not to look at benefits or any other things. It was just really, hey, public safety officers, are we paying them what we should be or what is competitive with cities around us? And also, we call it, nobody likes to call it longevity, but that's technically what it is. It's incentives to keep employees. What can we do to keep employees who start out with us but then leave to go somewhere else? We want something that's going to keep those people here with us. So did I miss anything, Sarah? Any other questions? Did that kind of touch on everything that you had questions about? I don't know if she was able to.
I got one question for you, or maybe it's for the chief. Why is the detective position a rotating position? I mean, why don't we have in the pay scale a detective position?
I rotated, when I went to a full-time detective, I rotated it every 2 years. Because with a smaller department, it allows other officers to move into that position to have more of a Monday through Friday weekend. It gives them a little more stability. It also gets them off the road so I don't just burn out officers on the road and they don't have anything to look for, because we don't have specialized divisions and everything.
Also give them the experience in that position doing that?
It gives them, yes, it gives them that experience, gives them something to look for, to do different than what they've been doing. So it's an opportunity to get different officers into that position, kind of, to give them a break off of what they've,
Yeah, no, I understand what you're
on
saying.
that. So, and that's why we went with kind of a 2-year commitment on it, just to get them in, get it changed out, and move them through. Bill Lynn's doing it now. He was a detective before and put in for it, and he's running it for another 2 years right now. So they have the opportunity to come back in it, and other officers, we just kind of, see how they do things on the road. If we think they might make a good detective, we definitely look at them.
Right, thanks, Chief.
Okay.
They just can't tell you they want. I mean, they have certain criteria, I guess you look at them.
Detective. Yeah, they have to when we open the detective's position up. They usually have to submit a letter to the captain. The captain oversees the detective's position. So if we get 2 or 3, we start going back and we look at what reports they've submitted and what they've done. If they can't write a report, it's real hard to be a detective because we've got to work on that, and we try to give them. We try to make sure people are prepared to go into this job and do it. But it's also what they've done in the past and how they've been able to do it. So they have to basically apply for the position to get in there.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
They just can't come into you and 2 years ago, I want it.
Yeah.
A bit more detail to it than that.
They can do it, but what they want and what they get might be 2 different things. Yeah.
I got a question for you, Chief.
Sir.
And it may not be listed as incentives, but the officer's been on 2, 3, 4 years. Is there other kinds of training that's offered that they'll go and do a week or 2 weeks, and they get certified in an additional kind of training? And it may not be salary value. It doesn't have to be paid, but are those things considered part of incentives to come and work for us because you may get selected for this kind of training or that kind of training or whatever? And
Part of the way the pay scale is set up right now with the PO2 position. We look for instructor certifications, and I don't need 5 firearms instructors to get them. So when we start, getting them prepared at their year mark when they're getting ready to jump to PO2, we start going, okay, what do we need to be able to instruct on the department to come back and instruct the other people? One of the things with CPOST, once you complete your academy the following July, we're mandated. Every certified police officer in the state of Kansas is mandated to get 40 hours of annual training per year to keep their certification. So I have to send people to classes and get them trained, and I try to look for things that are different that they might enjoy to bring back and help teach us. So we do that. So I mean, to sit there.
So there's requirements already.
There's already requirements in place for them just to maintain their certification through the state. So.
Any other questions?
No.
Thanks, Chief. Okay, with that, I need a motion to accept the final report and finalize the public safety pay study.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Mr. Kirby?
Yes.
Mr. Major?
Yes.
Mr. Bueller?
Yes.
Mr. Dixon?
Yes.
Mr. Brungart?
Yes.
Mr. Stednicka?
Yes,
Motion passed. Item number 3 is modification of town center declaration of easements, covenants, and restrictions. A hospital or medical office building is currently listed as a restricted use in town center. While staff feel that the eye care business is more of a professional use, the purchaser's attorney has requested a modification to the document to satisfy their concerns. Staff is supportive of removing the restriction in the document. I need a motion to approve the modified town center declaration of easements, covenants, and restrictions as presented.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
just, are we doing this just for the eye center, and that restriction stays in place for the other parts of town center, or are we removing it for the whole parcel?
So this declaration and restrictions piece applies to lots 2, 3, and 4, which is the FEC lot, the Mr. Dobsky's lots, and that's the only area that it applies to. So it would only apply to those, but what I would say is because we own the ground, it's not necessarily needed to have this restriction in there. If we didn't own the ground, then we would use this as a tool to make sure that what we wanted to develop.
I understand why it's put in there, yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Does that answer your question?
That's my question, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's the question I was going to have. 2, 3, and 4. Where were they exactly located? And you answered it. Thanks.
Okay.
Northwest. Any other discussion? Nope. We'll call the roll.
Mr. Kirby?
Yes.
Mr. Major?
Yes.
Mr. Bueller?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Brungart?
Yes.
Mr. Stednica?
Yes.
Motion passed. Item number 4 is executive session, economic development. I need a motion to recess to executive session to review economic development incentives pursuant to the discussion of confidential data relating to financial affairs or trade secrets of corporations, partnerships, trusts, and individual proprietorships, exception KSA 75-4319 Bravo 4 for 30 minutes, beginning at 7:21. What did I say, 30? And ending at 7:51.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Mr. Kirby?
Yes.
Mr. Major?
Yes.
Mr. Bueller?
Yes.
Mr. Dixon?
Yes.
Mr. Brungart?
Yes.
Mr. Stednica?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Speaking of slow speeds,
Need a motion to return to open session.
so moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Yes.
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 Motion passed. Reports. City Attorney.
Another report, Mayor.
City Administrator. Tim.
Last we spoke, it sounded like there was feedback to potentially not do the volunteer dinner for this year. Is that still the feedback from you all?
Yeah, I think that was the decision, that we would still go to their homes maybe and give them a gift.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'd be glad to be part of that.
Okay. Very good then. The school district reached out to us about doing another joint meeting like we had done in years past. I want to say the last time we did it, we went to the district office on a Monday before one of their regular meetings. Is that something you guys would all have interest in doing in the next?
Why can't they come to us?
Yeah, they can come here. We have more room.
Okay. I can pass that on.
We've always gone there,
Yeah.
so.
Okay. Yep. I will pass that along then. So we can go from there. And then another thing, just a reminder, I think I'd spoken to some of you guys about that wastewater treatment plant parking lot. I know it was getting kind of bad, so I think Tony was going to start looking at options pretty soon. And I think if any of you guys have been there recently, Marcus, I know you took that tour recently, and Mayor, you were there too. It's pretty bad to the point where it's almost kind of a tripping hazard, I guess you could say.
Beyond tripping.
So I think he's going to start kicking around options for repair to start in 2022 and maybe do that as a two-phase thing. Obviously, anything we do, it's going to require bids and you guys to be aware of it. But I did want to put that in your minds in case you hadn't thought about it recently. But that wastewater treatment plant parking lot is in need of repair. So. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Tim. Anything from the department heads? Going once. Okay. We'll go around the horn. Gene.
I just, when we talk about public safety and what we pay and the things those guys do, let's remember the very young Independence police officer who was still in training, who was shot and killed the other day. That just makes the things that we do more difficult, I think.
Yeah.
So let's keep his family in our thoughts and prayers in the city of Independence, and all police, all first responders everywhere.
Yeah.
It can happen anywhere. It doesn't have to be in a big city. There's nothing huge about Independence. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Gene. Marcus.
Yeah, thanks for all of you. Thanks for all our city administration team and staff, and thanks for our first responders. Thank you very much. That's all I got.
Greg.
Yeah, I appreciate them coming in and talking to us about that today, Tim. So if our guidance was clear, we're good. And on this day in 1887, the very first game of softball was played in Chicago, Illinois. That's all I have, Mayor.
I remember it. Ron.
I just want to thank the representatives from RG Fiber for that presentation, and I also want to thank Beth for stepping in. Did a great job. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. Gary?
Beth, thank you. It was good. I mean, you did well when she didn't show up.
That it, Gary. All right, Don?
I want to thank Beth for her hard work, obviously, in the finance Want to shout out to the library. Terry's doing some wonderful things over there. Keep going. Great. And with that, move to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. Call a roll.
Mr. Kirby?
Yes.
Mr. Major?
Yes.
Mr. Bueller?
Yes.
Mr. Dixon?
Yes.
Mr. Brungart?
Yes.
Mr. Stednicka?
Yes.
We are adjourned.